wasn't for promotion. It was just for people to see that.
You too can make a better mousetrap. Okay, is that a circle? Okay, good. That was my check. Like I said, I'm Anthony Kazoub. I run a small, it's just me, consulting firm, and I do technical design. I design mixing consoles. I do sound for television. Like I said, I work at Revolution. I build things, do crazy things as much as I possibly can. Right now I'm studying electronics engineering at Seneca. Before I went to Seneca, I had to take a prerequisite class, and I was introduced to this thing called the neglected right triangle. So what is it? It's the 3-4-5 triangle. You got a whole bunch of different ones, and this is the Pythagorean triangle. So what this introduced me to was, I started plotting it on the unit square, and I'm thinking, this looks very, very familiar. And I said, well, this looks like the Dolby triangle. So the Dolby triangle is, you know, as some of us, 30 degrees, 30 degrees, 110 degrees. But every time I set up a 5-1 system in a studio, I've always found that we have to CAD the room out. We have to triangulate this space to this space to this space, and it's not as simple as, you know, setting a tape measure here and measuring this distance to this distance. You have to do the math, and it makes setups somewhat cumbersome, but sometimes it can go quick if you have the markers and stuff up. So what I started doing was playing with this 3-4-5 triangle, and I started realizing that it's pretty close to a Dolby spec. And I started thinking, well, if you could set up a room in 10 minutes with a ratio of 3-4-5, you've got a triangle that, you know, so your center speaker width would be 6, your rear speaker width would be 4 from your center, and with a very simple grade 5 rate, well, that's not grade 5, that might be grade 8 ratios, you could figure out how to set up a very similar looking thing to Dolby. What I've kind of termed it as, hanging around David at IMAX, was 5-point none. I'm not a big believer in the sub. I love 5 full range speakers because there's nothing like the IMAX experience. What do you call it? Rear low end?
No, it's just a subwoofer.
Just a subwoofer.
Yeah, you know.
But I love when a rumble comes from behind and goes forward. So I love the full range surround sound.
That's Dennis's fault.
Yeah, I should point out that Denis is here, and he's our
Oh, yeah,
system
there you go.
designer.
Yeah.
I actually designed that.
I love that. For me, I love full range surround sound. And here's your 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, because I think that is the way surround sound tracks should be.
Can I get all that ready?
Sorry. I love the 3, 4, 5. To me, it's a fantastic thing. So I started thinking. When I first moved to Toronto, I was very fortunate to work with Neil Muncy. Neil Muncy and I, we stayed up eating, drinking, and yelling, and we started talking about surround sound panners. And one of the things he has, and I think Blair has one of his consoles, is the SI3. He has 2 of them. They're not for sale. Left, center, right. He was always about a sound comes from one point, and it emanates from this point, and it has to come from here. So I started thinking, is there a way to do a single pot Dolby panner? So the sound comes from one single point, and it's not so much, it's coming from here, but I'm pointing it here. I want it to come from here. So I started thinking about this, and I'm thinking, well, if I took your regular potentiometer and I said, this is left surround, this is left, this is center, this is right. And next thing I know, I have this positioning system that's just the coordinates of the 5 speakers that are around. So I started thinking about, well, this is, you know, the standard pan law, and I figured, well, if I'm going to redo some of the Dolby spec or come up with my 5.9 system, I may as well take it a next step further and develop my own pan law. So I figured, well, you know, everybody likes left and right, so you've got you know, a big range across your front. So, you know, make the first 90 or 180 degrees of that your left and right, and you fold it down to the center. So I started playing with that a little bit more, and I started realizing that I needed to take this the next step further. So, well, here, hold on, see. I have a black bag trick. Who here has owned more than 5 mixing consoles? We've owned live consoles? Okay. Okay. Put your hand in the bag. Okay, there's a pot here. You turn the pot. Turn the pot. Just turn the pot. Okay. Now push it towards me.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever felt anything like that before? Okay.
Stretch your eyes and hold your hand.
Just hold it. Okay, now push it towards me. You see what you see there? Runs together. Who else wants to put their hand in the bag? Anybody else wants to put their hand in the bag? I'll show you. Okay, so there we go. Now push it towards me. Okay. Who's a performance artist here? Are there any performance artists? What do you perform? Do you perform electronic music by any chance?
More acoustic, but
Or acoustic. Well, that you don't have that.
I do that.
Who does synthesizers? Anybody just do synthesizers around here? Okay, all right. I'll just skip that, and I'll just take it to this. So what I've come up with is a single point linear traveling potentiometer, I call it. So you've got volume, and you've got pan, and this is something I haven't seen much at anywhere. I've talked to a lot of synth guys. I've done a lot of research, checked patents, did this, did that, and I was like, I can't find it much at anywhere. So I started sitting down. I made this one. This was the first one. I have a second one, and then I finally got around to thinking about bringing both of these ideas together, where I had a single point, one motion, intensity, and position. So I came up with, well, I have to take my pan law, my new pan law, the 5.9 pan law, and I put it on a intensity. So I have how much is it coming from there, and where is it coming from? So I brought that in, and there's that. So let's see. So I am involved with the Wardbeck Preservation Society. I don't know if any of you have heard that, but I do a lot of mixing console restorations. And a lot of these consoles predate stereo. Let's call them dual mono. So I have a lot of Wardbeck parts kicking around. So I came up with this. Let's see if this works. And there you go. There's the traveling potentiometer. So it doesn't end there. I've never seen this encoder before. So it could be applied in well, as a performance piece. It could be applied as a MIDI controller. It could be applied as, I don't know, anything you want it to be. Anything you need it to be, you know, as a performer doing electronic music or something, you've got a filter, or you've got an effect send, or you've got something very different. It's a very special piece. I've never seen it. I have a lot of these mono consoles that I want to convert into stereo, and for me, real estate is a huge deal. I hate chopping up things. I'd like to just add something to it that gives me this added flexibility, and this is what I've come up with. So then I thought, well, how do you apply this to Atmos? How do you apply this to Dolby? How do you apply this to well, this is front, this is back. Well, this is front, this is the ceiling. So instead of, you know, your linear traveling potentiometer, it doesn't go from front to back. It goes from bottom over your head and to the back. Well, then you take that a step further and you go, well, it's traveling from the front bottom up and then panning like this. And then it's you take it to the back and then it pans like this. Then you have almost this 360-degree spinning sphere of positioning. To make the size of it different, you would have to have a different pot that says this is the size of the object that's traveling. And that's what I've come up with, and that's my gadget that I'm presenting. I thought this was a good place to do this, and I appreciate the opportunity.
All right. Thank you. Yeah.
Does anybody have any questions?
Have you tried it with an oscillator? You
could have a
Sure.
one-handed
You
theremin.
you could do whatever you wanted with it. You could do a filter. One of my friends who is a live sound guy, he wanted to do something where he wanted to expand. You know, you go into a club and you have one aux bus. Well, now you have two aux buses. Now you have an aux that pans between a delay and a reverb. Now you expand these things. It's limitless to what you can kind of do to it. But then you take it into the digital world and it becomes, you know, a high resolution encoder. It becomes a 360-degree encoder. You put a button on it and it becomes a button activated that changes the thing. You flip it sideways and it becomes an EQ. And then you tap where this is your EQ point and you want to raise it or lower it. It becomes a very different interaction with the traditional console. You know, where there are a lot of buttons and switches and pods, but this is something different.
Multi-dimensional pattern is very interesting. I mean, the joystick patterns around now are not fun.
I don't think they can achieve the dimension that this can, because I don't know. Every time I've used one, it's kind of like, instead of putting the sound, you know, if this was your sound field, you know, you can put it here, and it's like, well, sound doesn't come from there. It comes from the speaker. It comes from the single. It comes from over there, and I don't think sound comes from the middle of a room ever, unless, I don't know, it's a conversation. I suppose.
Some hardware that will do that.
Sorry. Well, there's some fantastic stuff out there, but this gives the editor access to it. You could put this into post-production suite. You could put this at the hands of the content creators, where now news is being fed and ingested into systems in 5.1, and you know, the average person, really, it's difficult for them to pan things around. It's just a quick way to grab audio, move it to the position you want it to be in. Anybody else want to pass this around? You saw it? Any other questions?
What are you doing with it now?
What am I doing with it? I'm going back to school. It's for sale, 10 grand, you want one? I don't know what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get my education happening.
You should talk to some venture capitalists, get some money for it.
Well, I'd love to get some money out of it, so we'll talk afterwards. I ultimately am going to be installing it on a couple consoles that I'm refurbishing. Right now we've got a console at the studio. I rebuilt a Ward Beck for Studio C at Revolution, and the stereo, or the subgroups, don't have pans on them, so well, I'm just going to throw in 6 pans, and there I have my left-right pan. But at the break I have a little headphone amp if anybody wants to, I don't know, play with it. It's a very different thing. This one doesn't detent. The other one feels much, much better. But don't, yeah, they're glued. It's proof of concept. Be gentle. There's that. Anybody else? There you go. Thank you so very much. Cheers.